أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. It is said that the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam's wife radiallahu ta'ala anha asks him what she should do if she anticipates or finds the night of destiny, the night of power, Laylatul Qadr. May Allah make us from amongst those who witness it and benefit from it. And the Prophet ﷺ tells her of a dua that likely many of you have heard, that if you were to find yourself on this day, that you make the dua, Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. That, oh Allah, you are the forgiving, the pardoner. You love to forgive, so forgive me. As we get ourselves ready now for the latter part of this month of Ramadan, may Allah accept from us all that we have undertaken within it up until this point. To recognize that there is a categorical distinction in our tradition, whether you are somebody who adheres to a certain madhab or not, whether you follow the Sunni or Shia traditions of this beautiful deen, regardless of your race, your culture, how it's practiced, where you do it in your home or don't, across the board, there is a distinction that understands the last 10 days and nights of this month are different from the first 20 and arguably distinct from any other days in the rest of the calendar year. And so in anticipation of it, getting ready for it, extrapolating meaning from this dua in particular, but also getting into a mental space that preps ourselves, not just outwardly, but inwardly, to be able to understand that conviction and ideals and what this represents to us is not going to be based on anything that somebody else can decide or choose for you. But within yourself, you have to make a deliberate decision that says, do I understand that there is a certain preciousness to these 10 days that are just moments away from us in reality? And am I going to allow for myself to take for them what it is that's rightfully mine to take? Or am I going to choose something else? May Allah make us from those who benefit from this entire month of Ramadan and take advantage of every moment of it. It's not going to come back again. And that's not something that is beyond obvious, but you have to then think about it. What are you doing to get ready for those last 10 days and then actually do those things? We have everybody move up. You can come in really close. Apologize for those who it's your first time back here. It's good to see you, alhamdulillah. Just to give you insight, the university has changed a lot of policies and have been really amazing in supporting us. But the room that we would typically use for Jummah, which we use for iftars and other programs on the weekends, has classes that were scheduled in it during the times where COVID policies were more restrictive. Alhamdulillah, we still have a place to gather for Jummah. If you can just be mindful that people are going to be coming in, we're live streaming to the other rooms on our floor here, but we want to fill this room as best as we can to its capacity. And so this dua is imperative to think about. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. And in some variations it says, Allahumma innaka afuun kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. But the word afu, al-afu, al-afwa, is not just forgiveness. A lot of nuance gets lost in translation. It's seen a handful of times in the Quran, al-afu, existing in this form as a noun, a divine name of Allah Azza wa Jal. And you see it that many more times now as a verb, the idea that it's something that's being actively engaged in. In Arabic, afa yaf'u means to erase, but it doesn't mean just to erase the way that you might delete something or erase with the back end of a pencil. But the idea of afa yaf'u is that you're erasing any semblance of it from existence. Then in Arabic, when you talk about the wind blowing footprints out of the sand, for example, removing it. If you've ever been on a beach and the water comes and erases what it was that you built on the sand of a beach, that's what afa yaf'u is denoting in terms of erasure. Just take it out of anything. It's distinct from maghfirah because ghafara is similar in Arabic to the word satara, which means to cover. For example, when you're in prayer, the hadith tells us to put something in front of us so that when someone walks in front of us, there's a block between us and them. It's called your sutra, derived from the same root of satara. Or your aura, the parts of your body you're supposed to cover. It's also called your satr. And so ghafara is similar to this Arabic word, that you're covering those things, but they're still written in your records. It's just written in your records that you are forgiven for it. When you're calling upon Allah as al-afu, you're engaging him in a way that says, Ya Rabbi, erase from anything that bears witness to the ideas, the actions, the deeds that I undertook, that this was something that was done. You want to think about this in two frames. One, the things that bear witness external to what it was that we did or did not do, but also then where the rahmah, the mercy is, and being able to engage in a divine entity that sometimes the hardest space to erase something from that bears witness to an action that we undertook is not necessarily in the world around us, but in the world within us. That I know what I did, and I don't know how to forgive me. My heart, it carries on it the reality that I engaged in this act, this transgression. I hurt this person in this way. My own healing necessitates the opportunity now for a recognition of a God that can take this away. And I want to inject the first frame first of what else bears witness. We have a lot that we draw from the Quran and the prophetic tradition that teaches us about our actions not being just something that are done by us and then they're forgotten. But you got to understand the existence of this worldly prism of existence, the dunya, the alameen. These are things that are not just in a temporary state of finiteness, but it's the end and nothing else. But we are created beings, created for eternal existence. May Allah make us people of Jannah. And the recognition of that, again, is a personal belief. Do you believe in heaven? Do you believe in an afterlife? And do your decisions understand the existence of it when you are now choosing the choices that you make? But in the prism of that, where we have now a mode of transmission that goes from not just our mouths, but literally other entities that on a day of judgment will say what it was that they witnessed. So the Quran, it speaks to us about the fact that our very limbs are going to talk about how we utilize them. They're going to bear witness and testify to actions. So your eyes will say what they saw. Your hands will say what they touched. Your ears will say what they heard. And I want you to think about this twofold, that your being is going to bear witness. You don't get to tell it what to say or not to say. But also the recipient of your actions is going to now be able to make claims. And so any child that had adult emotions put into their heart because their ears heard you yelling at their mother, those ears are going to talk and say, this is what we heard uttered. Just like an elderly parent who raised you and reared you, that abusive situations aside, you unleashing whatever you unleash upon them in frustration and anger. Or even worse, the ears will say, we didn't hear their voice for months. They just stopped talking to us after they left. The eyes that are going to sit and say that we witnessed these actions, and adding now another prism that you want to fill it with individuals who are going to be able to bear witness to say, Ya Rabbi, I saw this servant of yours engage in so many acts of goodness. That when everybody was passing somebody else on the street, they were the one that stopped and smiled and said, do you need anything today? When people ran to yell and scream and get frustrated in the midst of a pandemic at a grocery worker who was just trying their best in the absence of basic commodities, I saw that person ask that person if they needed anything. The body, the limbs, all of it's going to bear witness. Yours are going to say what you use them for, and the recipients of your actions, they are going to be able to say what it was that they received from you. Just think about it on this blessed day of Jummah in the month of Ramadan. You want to fill it with an absence of what is problematic and an abundance of things that are good, because nobody can benefit from the good that you don't do, especially you in an otherworldly sense. The very earth that we do acts upon, these pieces of earth are going to testify what it was that we did upon them. And so the idea in our tradition that stems from doing something wrong, replacing it with something that's right, and fulfilling now a recognition again, tying it to the first thing that we just saw and spoke about, the idea that your limbs are going to say things. So I want you to think about this, where imagery is what it is. There are still people in New York City who have no food to eat. May Allah make things easy for them. We saw acts of senseless violence take place in just a borough away from us. May Allah make things easy for them. Imagery is running rampant right now of our brothers and sisters in Al-Aqsa, where soldiers are violating the sanctity of one of the main sanctuaries of our tradition. The piece of earth that you stand on will bear witness where you saw that. Your eyes are going to say that you visually saw it. And then both that earth and both your body is going to testify, what did you do in response to it? What was your reaction? What was your mode of engagement? And it's not meant to be something that's overwhelming, because let God be God and you just be you. And you recognize your own capacity, that the hadith is true. You see something and you can change it by your hand, act against it. You can't act against it, speak against it. You can't speak against it, then make dua for that thing. So you just take the earth that you sit on and it's going to testify that that servant of yours, it made dua for their brothers and sisters who are sitting in the midst of Palestine at this very moment, trying to pray the same prayers that you and I choose whether we will pray them or not. That's what's the impediment, choosing whether we will actually do it or not, versus a governmental apparatus that would prevent us from going into a place that's rightfully ours. That earth is going to testify. Fill it with a mode of speech that's just goodness upon goodness upon goodness. Upon your shoulders, inna alaykum lahafidhin, the Quran says, are two guardians, kiraman katibin, elevated in writing. So they witness what is there, and they're writing. So what they write in, the Quran is a proof for us or against us. We're taught in the tradition. Allah himself is a witness. All of these things are there. You got to let your consciousness open to not just realities that are meant to be temporary, but thinking in the bigger sense of things. What are the deeds that I'm doing that are going to fill my scales? So a lot of people, they're going to show up. And in comparison to all of the fasts and all of the du'as and all of the prayers and standing in the night, the inventory is going to start to balance itself out from what is now contrary to those things. And you show up on the day of judgment, and when hisab is taken, you got nothing really to give. So these are the opportunities. And in those moments when you make that dua, Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni, you're turning to Allah and you're saying that, Ya Rabbi, forgive me in such a way that it erases from all of these things any existence of what it was that I did. Now, what Allah makes contingent upon forgiveness for us is that there are rights of God and there are rights of humanity. And so if you want to be right by Allah, you can't just seek forgiveness in a way that removes anybody else that you have to make restitute and whole. So if I stole your car and I went and said, Ya Afu, forgive me, I got to still give you your car back. I don't get to keep it. If you stole somebody's trust, if you stole somebody's peace of mind, if you engage them in a way where there's a piece of earth that can say that this servant of yours did not do right by somebody, go and do right by them as best as you can. Don't leave it to chance. And there's so much in our tradition that talks about the idea of being forgiving in this way. Forgiveness in that regard has two parts. In this conversation, you want to be the one that seeks it. Whether you deserve it or not is not your decision. You did something wrong to somebody, you need to own up to it. And if you are the one that forgiveness is being sought from, understand that forgiveness is your right. And if it's hard, you don't have to do it at a pace that's more difficult for you, because forgiveness is for the forgiver, not for the one that's being forgiven. So you can't hurt somebody and then make them feel bad using religion as a weapon, saying that somehow you are not being merciful by just letting go of what it was that you did to me. Then you're just abusing our tradition. And that's not an apology. It doesn't recognize what it was that you actually did fully. But in the end, where you can adopt now and actualize this attribute of the divine, a man comes on the day of judgment who is known in this world as being one who would forgive, pardon. And the pardoning that he had were literal debts that were owed to him. People would take money and he would forgive the debts. People would take money and he would forgive the debts. He stands in front of Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment. Allah says to him that you cannot be more afu than me, that I am al-afu. I am the one that pardons debts. I am the one that erases debts. I am the one that erases what is owed. By that act of pardoning, he gives this person entrance into Jannah. You don't want to carry toxicity in your heart. Somebody wronged you, I'm sorry for that. For your own sake, let it go. Somebody mistreated you, they didn't do right by you, be in a space where you wrestle with it. The Quranic verse that gives us indication that when the Prophet ﷺ is posed now a question in the Quran, the indication is given from the verse that Jibreel came with the Quran, and the verse says that he came with the Quran upon the heart of the Nabi ﷺ. So as you're reading this book and hearing its recitation and standing in prayer, going through its pages, it's got an end to it that's a purpose. It's supposed to impact here. And if this is the abode now where you are carrying what was not your fault, but somebody else externally put pain into you, you heal in this way, in this mode. And if you are part of the reason why somebody's pain is going forward, I'm going to say it to you with love. You don't want to stand in front of Allah in such a way where somebody was prevented from their healing because they didn't hear you own up to what you did to them, and you did not apologize while you had the means to do so. So hasibu anfusakum qabla an tuhasib, that you take yourself into account before you're taken into account. The other prism that you want to think about this in now is within the self. that there is a mercy in our ability to forget things, our ability to let go of certain things, and where you can reconcile and engage now in making restitute something that should not have been, but your recognition understands that I should not have done this to somebody. I should not have treated that woman in that way. I should not have treated that person in that way. I should not have engaged them in these ways. You hold on to realities that come from you that say that I should not have treated myself in this way. I did drink that drink that I shouldn't have drank. I did smoke that smoke that I should have left behind. I sought out the company of people that made no sense to me. I remember sitting with a student of mine years ago, and it happens consistently at the time of graduation here. And I see it also with people who are community members that come back and they're trying to reconnect now with their faith. This one student sat with me with tears in his eyes as he was going to go to commencement the next day. He said, the last 4 years that I've been here, I let go of every part of who I knew myself to be. I spent time with people who only accepted me when I became other than which I actually am. And now I'm leaving from this place. I have no idea who I am, and the people whose company I sought, I know that none of them are going to ever be there for me when I leave from here. What did I do with the last 4 years of my life? Why did I allow for myself to just engage in what was temporary? Ramadan is about full hearts, a recognition of where I came from, where I stand, and where is it that I really want to go. And you start to now anticipate on a night of destiny, a night of power, that you make this dua, that Ya Rabbi, just erase it, take it away, don't let my heart weigh heavy by it. And then be ready, because if you're going to call on Al-Afu to ask of you to pardon you in this way, and he opens now the necessary steps, which are inclusive of you going and righting the wrong, that is going to be for your healing as well as for the healing of the one that you have hurt. With humility, just embrace it. If the last day, the last week, the last month of your life has been gone without you saying I'm sorry to somebody, how is that possible, man? How? Especially the people you see every day, the people you engage in all days of your life. You work with them, you eat with them, you live with them. How? How can you not have something that happens in that way? And so embed it in a month of forgiveness with a recognition that says that these are things that I have to be able to exchange. The last part that I want you to think about, Laylatul Qadr, the Quranic description, it says that the Malaika, the Ruh, Jibreel, everyone is coming down. Haya is not about a dress like this and you dress whatever, wearing a scarf on your head. You can say these are extensions of it. Haya, by definition, is that Allah does not see you in a place that He would not want for you to be seen. And Allah does not see you absent from a place that He would want for you to be present. That's haya in our tradition. That's what modesty means. It's a word that doesn't get translated well. Don't let the coming days, regardless of what your nafs says, regardless of what it is that your inclinations call you to, be in a place where you are absent from gatherings, that the only thing that's keeping you from being there is your decision and choice. Be in a space where even if your heart's not there, your body is present, going through it. These are days and nights that you want to take advantage of. And don't let these be days and nights that you are sitting in spaces, man, that you know that you wouldn't want anybody else to see you in, let alone God and His angels seeing you. And the idea that on the night of destiny, the world's just filled with these angels, what do you think they're doing when they come down? Other than they're bearing witness to what you're doing. It creates barakah. There's uniqueness there. Look, even on this day of Jummah, so beautiful outside. But utilize your mind and your heart to just take it a step further, The angels come down for what? If not to say, what is your servant doing on this night? Does he or she really get what it's about? Are they in the spaces that you would want to see them in? And Allah is al-afu. This is where the dua says, tuhibbul afwa. He loves to be afu. All he's looking for is a reason for you to give him, to practice, to engage in al-afwa. It's something that is divine promise that the messenger is telling us. So you don't have to worry about that. There's not anything that you can do that's greater than God's mercy. Where we say this in the Quran, many of you have heard in Surah Al-Baqarah, wa'fu anna waghfir lana warhamna. The dua says in Surah Al-Baqarah. So when we are saying this, the Mufassirin, they say, wa'fu anna means that you are asking Allah to forgive for the things that you could have done, but you did not do. Waghfir lana, the things that you should not have done that you actually did. Warhamna, that the only way really at the end of it all is by Allah's rahmah. It's not just mercy. Rahmah is love, compassion, softness, tenderness, gentleness, all encompassed in this word. But it starts from your heart. I want you to just think on this day of Jummah, what are you going to be spending your time doing? This is the last thing that I'll say because it was something that struck my heart this past week. There's an amazing scholar of our tradition, a professor, many of you know, his name is Bilal Ware. May Allah preserve him. And he wrote something in these days of Ramadan about how we engage the Quran. And he says, some of you, you're reading the Quran with this very imperialistic kind of mindset that you're not even aware that you have. He says, you're trying to conquer the Quran, when in reality, the Quran is supposed to conquer you. And you can read through its pages and engage it in that way, as if you are somehow a champion over it. But you want to take some time to also just engage in fiqh, reflection, to ponder its verses, to contemplate its meanings, to just think about it and draw from it an understanding on your philosophy of life. I thought it was so profound. May Allah make us from amongst those who are conquered by the Quran, who our nafs is not tyrannical and control over us, and make us from amongst those who our hearts through this month of Ramadan become sovereign over us. And may we never be those who make decisions at the expense of our hearts, but always and only through them and for their benefit. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Alhamdulillah, we're almost at a halfway point in this month. May Allah accept it from us. You all have achieved an amazing thing. May Allah increase you and enable you to take from the remainder of this month as best as you can. We're continuing with our nightly iftars here. We are also still doing it Monday through Friday at our engineering school. If you are in the vicinity of our medical corridor, we have provisions made for people there as well. Come and be a part of these gatherings. Come and meet others. We have a halaqah that's taking place every night before iftar. Tonight, Dr. Marwa from our staff, who's amazing, will be there. Be in those places. Allow for yourself to be open as a mode of reflection and deepening so that you can continue to learn and just be in Mubarak gatherings. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, after Salat al-Tarawih, we're going to be doing a special qiyam program for women only. It'll go till Fajr time. You can be there for as long as you can. and something to just be mindful of and think about, especially for the brothers in the room as we grow older. And some of you are married, some of you will be married, you'll have children. Ramadan is not a male-centered occasion. And so you want to, in your own strategy, recognize that if you have mothers that are at home, you have spouses that are at home, you have people that are at home, they too would likely want to benefit from some aspect of engagement of what our religion offers in this month. And so you think about that. And there's not a lot of spaces in New York City that unfortunately cater to our sisters. And so for those of you who are here that can benefit from this gathering, it'll be a really special time. Stay as long as you can. Next Friday, we're going to do a qiyam that's open for the whole community. Make time to be there. That'll be from Friday night to Saturday morning. And if there's opportunity, we'll add more in before the month ends, inshallah. We're still raising funds for Afghanistan. We've, alhamdulillah, raised about $325,000 already. Our students tomorrow are going to be hosting Fastathon, which you've likely seen information of on our websites and email lists. Try to come tomorrow. The proceeds from that are going to be going to the cause as well. There's 23 million people facing food insecurity in Afghanistan right now. Over 1 million children are projected to pass by the end of this year who are under the age of 5 alone because they don't have food to eat. And if you can't meet it with real mahabba, real love, which is a foundation to the completion of our iman, then it's going to go one ear and out the other. But as a community, we have demonstrated again and again that we can mobilize effectively. And this is now for people who have nothing to eat in a destabilized region of the world that has been bombarded and bombarded again by individuals whose egocentricity and greed could care less as to what their lived reality is. They're still fasting their Ramadan. They're still praying in the nights. They're going to still celebrate their holiday. What's getting in the way of you and I, other than something that we've built up inwardly in this notion of choice that's not always choosing what's best for our inside? We're still looking for sponsors for our iftars as well. If you can contribute to the sadaqah on your way out, it would be appreciated. And lastly, if anybody needs anything, please let us know. Every night, there's been a lot of people who are looking just for a space to talk. As you start to open up to yourself, it can be something that's quite difficult. You don't have to go through it alone. Myself, the rest of our staff, others in the community, we're more than happy to listen. If you're carrying heaviness, there's things that arise for you as your heart is becoming open to the benefits of Ramadan. Let us know what we could do for you. Inshallah ta'ala, it'll be our honor, our blessing to be able to assist in whatever ways that we can. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah. We beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Ya Allah, Ya Hadi, guider of all hearts, we ask that in this blessed month of Ramadan, you draw us closer to you through your Quran. Open our hearts to the miracle that is your Quran and make us from amongst those who understand all of its meaning, that which is apparent and that which is not. When we read its words, help us to read it not only with our physical eyes, but with our spiritual eyes. Let our reading of it be tied to a yearning of heart and not burdensome obligation. Do our reading of your Quran increase us in our Islam? Do our reading of your Quran increase us in our Iman? Do our reading of your Quran increase us in our Ihsan? Make us the doers of your word and not simply the hearers of it. Make us those who act upon your Quran, and in all of our actions are found the Quran's presence. Help us to adhere to all of its commands, to pray our daily prayers, and to fast this month of Ramadan, to go on the pilgrimage as soon as we have the means to do so, and to give of our wealth to others who have so much less than we might ever experience in our lives. Help us to be distant from all of which it prohibits, to always remember the vastness of your mercy and your love that it tells us we are entitled to, even at times when we forget it and make mistakes. Make us those who memorize your Quran and learn to recite it as it was meant to be recited. Your beloved, peace and blessings be upon him, has said that for every letter of every word there is a reward in it for us. Accept from us every letter that we have heard, we have listened to, we have read, and we have recited, both in this month of Ramadan and every month prior to it. Help us to embody a character that is Quranic, to live with integrity, honesty, and hope, to honor the rights of both parents and children, to be good to all people and never partake in acts of injustice, to see diversity in all of its beauty and to never run towards any type of racism or hatred, to speak truth and only truth and to detest any type of falsehood, to never brag or boast or to talk and act in vanity, to not be contemptuous or arrogant with others and to walk with humility, to speak only when necessary and equipped with actual knowledge, and to never think the worst of others based on simple hearsay, to not defame others and to recognize always that we are meant to be brothers and sisters to each other, to not backbite or gossip and to only offer the best of wishes and blessings when we meet and greet one another, to treat kindly our parents, our children, all relatives and orphans, especially those that society has left behind, to take care of the needy, the disabled, those who have little or no income, those who have no work at all, to not expect anything in return for doing good, but to simply do good because it is the right thing to do, to pardon with grace those who do wrong, and to seek forgiveness when we have wronged others, and to always remember you, Ya Allah, with gratitude, love, and appreciation. Ya Allah, give us a character that embodies your Quran. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيموا الصلاة.